Ciao everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the SUPERYOUMAN Podcast. I am your host, Renato Carasso, and together we will talk about the latest biohacks and scientific discoveries that will turn you from a human into a superhuman. And it all starts now. Hi, and welcome to the SUPERYOUMAN Podcast. Today I'm interviewing Dr. Berman from Neuronic. Today's episode is all about cognitive enhancement through many different ways. So this is a very interesting episode because Dr. Berman will guide you through the causes of mental decline and how we can make it better in a number of ways. But we're going to talk a lot about the Neuronic device, which is such an innovative device that will change a lot of things when it comes to cognitive enhancement. Of course, this is a tiny fraction of all the parts that we're gonna talk about. For this reason, just relax, stay tuned, and enjoy the episode, which is coming right now. It's a pleasure to have you here on the show. Welcome to the SUPERYOUMAN Podcast. And
thank you. Good to be here.
Likewise. I was very excited to have you on the show. Because of what you do, and I have so many questions for you. So today we're gonna talk all about cognitive function, brain, a little bit of mental health.
Sure.
And also want to share with the audience what you do and what they can benefit from your product. But first of all, I'd like to share with the audience something more about you and your background, Dr. Marvin.
Okay. Well, I started out being very interested in the relationship between the mind and the body. And I trained as a psychotherapist and as a psychologist, but was particularly keen on learning and understanding better about the mind and the body. And there was a tradition within the psychoanalytic tradition back when Sigmund Freud was first developing psychoanalysis. I mean, people don't remember that Freud was a neurologist. So his whole orientation was neurology and the functioning of the brain. But he only had the tools that he had in 1922 or 3. He had in the early 1920s, they didn't have the technology. But one of his students was a Dr. Wilhelm Reich. And Dr. Reich, he started treating patients in psychoanalysis, and he showed that when the patients became aware of their early trauma, and they experienced the feelings that had been created by the traumatic experience, when they expressed those feelings, there was literally an increase in the measured voltage on the muscles that he was recording. So he was recording the voltage on muscles across the shoulders, and when the patient became aware of what they were holding in and suppressing, when they expressed it, the voltage literally went up.
Wow.
So he realized that all of these intellectual concepts, like libido, you've heard that term?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's not an intellectual concept. It's a real bioelectrical phenomenon that you can measure with a voltmeter. In 1926.
1926.
In 1926, right? That's like more than 100 years. It's like crazy. So when I saw that was what was going on, I went, well, I'm not going to just sit and talk to people about their problems because they're carrying around all this tension. So I got interested in that kind of body-centered therapy. And one of them was called bioenergetic analysis. And that was developed by one of Reich's students, Dr. Lowen. So I trained in bioenergetic analysis and then got very interested in biofeedback. My interest then was looking at why there wasn't more interest in the scientific community and in the professional community. Why weren't people using these tools more and more? and I realized there was very little research in the scientific literature about brainwave biofeedback. So I set up the Quietmind Foundation as a resource to develop research on these tools that people had developed but not really published research in the mainstream literature. So we started doing research and figuring out ways to get this information out to people. So that's kind of how I got involved. And the light therapy came along while we were doing the research on dementia. We saw that you could modify your brainwave activity with biofeedback, and you could improve your memory and decrease the symptoms of dementia just with biofeedback alone. But then we saw that the infrared light could stop and alter the biological functions in the brain that were actually causing the disease. So now if you use the light and you use the biofeedback, now you've got a very potent intervention. So that's where we've gotten to now.
That is amazing, Dr. Marvin. You mentioned biofeedback and you mentioned photobiomodulations or red infrared.
Okay.
What is exactly biofeedback?
Biofeedback is a technique that was developed almost 100 years ago, where instruments that could measure a physical function like skin temperature or muscle tightness, instruments that would give you that kind of measurement that would then display changes in those measurements. And so if you take a thermometer and you measure the change in temperature and you show somebody the change in the temperature, then you're giving them feedback about a biological function, biofeedback. So when you start to talk about that, you're actually giving somebody the ability to learn how to control a function in their body that they might have ordinarily thought was not possible to consciously control. So that's where the concept of biofeedback came from. And neurofeedback is just one type of biofeedback where what you're measuring is the electrical activity coming from your brain. And you measure that with electrodes that you place in specific spots on your head, and it measures the voltage coming from the brain that reaches the surface of the scalp. And so if you get information on the screen showing you changes in those voltage patterns, you can then develop an ability to, in a sense, control and modify your brain electrical activity. So if we know what normal brain activity looks like, and we do, we can then compare someone's individual brain activity against the norms by age, gender, and whether you're left or right-handed. So we can see where you are in that normal range or where you're out, and then we can help train the person to bring their activity into normal range.
This is amazing. And the reason why it's amazing, and I think you mentioned that before, is because my understanding is that the majority of population, majority of people, when it comes to mental health, and behaviors and states of mind and so on, tend to believe that it's only something that you can only fix through talk therapy and talking and so on, and they underestimate the fact that there is a lot of chemical involved, right? And in the case of neurofeedback, that's a very powerful tool, because for the first time in history, I know it's been around for a while, but you can train certain action and certain behaviors, right, and also eventually, correct me if I'm wrong, just even change your response to things, right? So some people might get very anxious from a text message, for example, or and that's super, super powerful. Very, very exciting stuff. And you said you combining that with photobiomodulation.
Exactly, because what we also found out was if you can deliver light onto the scalp and you pulse the light at a certain rate, your brain will notice the pulsing frequency, and it will start to generate that frequency. So if I know that your brain is not producing enough 10 hertz activity in the front of your head, I can pulse the light at 10 times a second on your scalp, and your brain will start to produce more 10 hertz activity. And I can do that. You can do that anywhere
in any region of the brain, depending on
any frequency. So if you know where somebody's brain activity is not where it ought to be, you can help support that pattern of activity being increased. You can retrain the brain electrical activity.
This is so interesting, and it replies to a point that I had in mind when before the interview. I thought, and I had read on the website and so on. But before even reading the website and the product that you have developed, which you're going to go to it in a second, I thought, but then why couldn't I just get a red light therapy and place it on my head, right? And now that I'm talking to you, and by seeing information on the website, I'm starting to understand more and more and more.
If you can control the pulsing, and you know what the brain, where the deficit, the deficiency, or the overactivity might be, you can then pulse and bring the level of activity that's too high, you can bring it down, and you can bring the activity pattern that's too low, you can bring it up. In addition, if the left side and the right side are not communicating efficiently enough, you can modify it. You can literally modify the pulsing, so you could do 10 over here, but you could do 20 over here. And then you can switch and do 10 over here and 20 over here. And you can switch back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and that will stimulate the brain to start reconnecting more efficiently between the hemispheres, just by pulsing the light.
That is amazing. This is absolutely great, because that's what now is making sense why a device like this has a place. It's not just for the biomodulation, which, just a reminder for the people who are listening, for the biomodulation includes red light and near infrared light, which is
any wavelength of light,
any
wavelength of light that's shined on the body that alters biological functioning. That's photobiomodulation. That's what it means.
And you have in your device, you got red, infrared, and you got also other frequencies.
Only infrared.
Only infrared.
We found that 1070 nanometers.
Okay.
That wavelength is especially effective in increasing oxygenated hemoglobin and something called cytochrome C oxidase, which is that's the chemical that goes into producing ATP, adenosine triphosphate. So the protein in the mitochondria that you stimulate with the light is the cytochrome C oxidase. When you stimulate that with the light, it increases the motor, the ATP production within the mitochondria. So you're getting an increase in the thing that you need the most.
Right in the region that we want it to work.
And if you use a device like this, right, then you're stimulating the entire brain to increase the ATP in the entire brain.
Wow. Okay. So now we're talking with a device that has neurofeedback for the biomodulation. And then you said the frequencies, it just regulates the frequencies based the pulsing based on neurofeedback, based on the customized to your needs.
Right.
Now, for me, it's very clear why a device like this is very different to just a simple red light therapy device when it comes to cognitive function.
Right. That's a sun lamp.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah, that's a sun lamp. This is neurotherapeutic device, a photo neurotherapeutic intervention.
And just for people at home, infrared light cannot be seen by the naked eye. Am I correct?
It can up to about 850.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Over that, no. So 1070 nanometer light, you can't see. You can see it. You can see it with the video through your smartphone.
The infrared. Okay. Interesting. And now this comes for a good cause, and I think at the right moment of history, because you were mentioning before about dementia, for example, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think dementia is among the four big killers in history. I think dementia is in between, right? I think there is cancer, there's diabetes, dementia, heart disease. Yeah. So it's, it tackles a big part of the population, including the ones that think, oh, I don't have dementia. But obviously we know that prevention, eventually as we get older, prevention, it does its contribution.
Yeah, it's more, I don't want to have dementia. I don't want to get dementia. Mm-hmm. But there is one other point, Renato, that's important to bring up, and that's because of COVID.
Yes.
10 to 30% of all the people who have gotten COVID, independent of the severity of their symptoms, are going to manifest some degree of long-term neurological problem. Of everyone who's gotten COVID, a serious percentage of those people are going to develop neurological problems, regardless of how severe their symptoms were. It doesn't matter. And also because it degrades the immune system, it slowly degrades your immune system. So other diseases that you might have been able to handle, now you can't handle them. I developed Lyme disease a year after I had COVID.
Wow.
I live in the middle of a city in a brand new house. No ticks, nothing. And all of a sudden, I broke out in an intense, fever, and I had to go to the hospital. And they finally diagnosed me with Lyme disease. It was in me for 20 years when I lived in the suburbs.
And then just manifested after.
But I controlled it as long as my immune system was strong. But after a year after COVID, I couldn't protect myself internally anymore, and boom, out came the Lyme disease, and I had to do 6 weeks of intensive antibiotics to recover from the Lyme.
Wow!
And I'm sure that that's happening to lots and lots and lots of people, and they don't even know what's going on.
There is now that we're talking, and then obviously I'm talking about my circle of friends and people that I care about. A lot of people who got COVID, and that's regardless. I know there was a big debate, and there is still about vaccine, but regardless, unvaccinated people who got COVID, vaccinated people who got COVID, regardless, all categories, they are getting infected through different things more easily. I'm definitely noticing that. So yeah, wow. Okay, so that's
because your immune system, your overall immunity to fight has been degraded.
Oh my gosh!
And
yeah,
the neurological damage is much easier. It's much easier to cause neurological damage than in other parts of the body. So when it gets into your brain, that's a really big problem.
That's a big problem, isn't it? Because it just, it governs anything. Like it's, if I have to choose between, something like I want to be sane mentally. I think everyone will tell, obviously you want to have your body and your brain both functioning well. But if you have to pick up one, I'll definitely pick up my brain. It's, there is no doubt about that.
Right. Okay.
And
so it's a big deal. Yeah,
absolutely. I also was interested, and still that's connecting with what you said at the very beginning of this conversation about, being, the body and the state of minds being chemical and not just, I wouldn't say spiritual, but hopefully, you know what I mean, right? Just, being a lot yeah, like more physical than we initially thought of, right, many decades ago. And we have many examples, right? Sometimes just a state of anxiety could be just a very altered imbalance of neurotransmitters, for example, or low motivation could be just your dopamine levels are are to the ground, and so it becomes more, it's become more physical and more chemical that that what at least I thought and I believed, right? Like I remember I used to be very hard on myself on days where I had there was a period where I went in complete burnout, and for me it lasted for a while. For people at home listening, burnout lasts for a while, and I believe it is a thing. And there were days I had very low motivation, right? And I was very hard on myself, right? Thinking it's me. Turns out, yes, it was me, but it was also a chemical imbalance.
It was in you.
That is correct.
It was in you. It wasn't about you. It was literally in you.
That is correct. And that's
it wasn't that you had a crappy attitude. It's not that you didn't think your mother loved you. It's not that your cat died.
I agree.
You had an inflammatory process in your gut that was causing a massive overproduction of cytokines in your brain. And no, you really couldn't think clearly. You really couldn't.
No, 100%. And I also had another experience that I'm curious to discuss with you and share with the audience. So I'm a biohacker, like a full-on biohacker. I got every device possible in my place. I've taken like lots of supplements a day, and I do. But I have to say, for people at home, just don't try stuff because it can be very dangerous. Even if you do natural thing, it can be very dangerous. So I work with my functional doctor. I study a ton, and I know there are risks involved. So just just to be said for people, because natural doesn't mean not dangerous. And because of that, and that's why I also want to share this story. So I was taking a copper peptide, GKU. Anyway, it was a copper peptide, and for longevity benefits and health benefits, and that was in an oral form. And I was taking higher doses of it, more than necessary, and I went into copper toxicity. Without I didn't even realize. The way I realized it is because fortunately, like, I knew about the topic and I knew about some of the symptoms of copper toxicity, something chemical involved, because it just happened like that. And then I said, oh my gosh, I'm getting like 10 times higher copper doses, and because it's a peptide, I didn't make the connection. But yeah, this is for saying people at home, yes. So even if something is natural, just be careful, because you can overdo things and you can really do big damage.
I was talking to somebody today, because they were asking me, well, can I take this supplement or can I take that supplement while I'm doing the helmet? And I said, look, we try not to practice throwing spaghetti at the wall medicine.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the model we like, right? If you want to throw spaghetti at the wall in order to come up with an answer, I'm the wrong guy to talk to. If you want to collect data, right, and get some evidence, and then make decisions based on the evidence, then okay, we should talk. But don't ask me, well, what about this? What about that? With no evidence behind it. That's not how we want to operate. It's not, and we don't have to operate like that at all, because there really are ways to measure non-invasively that are accurate, and you really can use those measures to guide what you're doing.
And so thank you for clarifying that, because it's something that I'm really strong about it. It's I get it all the time about supplement questions. First of all, I'm not a doctor, right? And I cannot give advice, but a lot of people.
Exactly. One other thing that I always, it's like natural medicine and all kinds of medicine you have to stop thinking about it as if it was American capitalism, right? More is not always better.
That is
Really, right? More is not always better.
Yeah.
So it's a habit that people get into. Oh, I need more. I need more of everything. No, no. Sometimes, because that's one of the things that happened with the V light. Remember the V light?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, remember the V light? So people were reading we were working with V light for years. I worked with Lou Lim. We did presentations together. But one of the things that was in the brochure was put it on, turn it on, and let it run for 20 minutes.
You can overdo it, definitely, even with light.
I'm like, wait, how do you know that 20 minutes is okay? How do you know that that's what's useful? You don't, right? And so many people were talking about, oh, I used the V light, but I got these headaches and I got all sleepy and my head felt like it was full like a grapefruit. And I was like, yeah, you overdosed. So we set the Neuradian up, right? When we created this, there we go. When we created this, I was like, wait, we're going to set the time from 1 minute to 30 minutes. And we're going to tell people to start 3 minutes, no more. And then stop and wait and watch. And we've had almost 200 people now. And I would say maybe 5 people have had negative reactions so far. Right. And they went away as soon as they stopped doing too much. Because they had that American capitalism. Oh, I felt so great and peaceful with the peace program. So I did it 3 times in a row. And I'm like, wait a minute. What are you doing? Oh, yeah. And I got such a headache. And I'm like, guess what? Don't do that.
Yeah, it's you can definitely overdo it even with lights, right? And it is a medical device at the end. So you dosage is important. Dosage are like attention.
I've said people, if this was a bottle of pills, would you have felt so comfortable just popping a few? Or would you have looked at the bottle and done what it said on the bottle? Anyway.
100%. No, it's good to do those. It's good to share that. Like, it's part of my mission also sharing that, because there are some horrible stories even on natural treatment. I don't know why we tend to think that natural it's super safe, and it's definitely effective, but it needs to be, you need to be guided. Don't experiment with yourself, because if you do too much on the wrong side, I'm not talking about red in general, you can do very big damage. But I don't want to talk just about negative things. I want to talk also about the positive things, and especially the tangible aspect of the device. And maybe what I like to do, it's a different scenario of different profiles of people. The normal person who doesn't have history of dementia, who just wants to perform better, and why they could benefit from the device. People who have dementia or have a family history of dementia, and they might want to do it in a preventative way. For sure, there is a use case for that. And maybe also if there are other conditions, and that's a question mark that I've put out there, other conditions who could benefit somehow from it, like people with OCD, people with ADHD, or simply people with anxiety or depression, for example. Yes.
So I think we were, when our email was going back and forth, I said that on the one hand, it makes complete sense that people would be looking for help with a particular set of symptoms that they're having. However, the way that neurofeedback and the way that photobiomodulation, I think, is most usefully thought about is that these are interventions that are at the very, very foundational level of how the brain organizes itself and how it functions. So if what we're doing with neurofeedback and photobiomodulation is really about increasing the overall efficiency of the central nervous system, right? If that's what we're really trying to accomplish and what we're doing, then any disorder that is mediated by the central nervous system, if you make the central nervous system function more efficiently, then the question really could be, what wouldn't improve? If you can make the central nervous system function more efficiently, then any disorder is going to get addressed more efficiently. So on the one hand, yes, you can use these tools very specifically to treat neuropsychiatric, neurodevelopmental, and neurodegenerative conditions like dementia, Parkinson's, ALS, Tourette's, MS. You can think about it that way. You can think about it in terms of depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder. You can think about it in those areas, and you can even think about it in terms of autistic spectrum and Lyme disease, right? You can do it that way. But I think it's easier for people who are not doctors, right, to just say, look, I want to make my brain function more efficiently and stay healthy, right, without risking side effects. That's what this is about. Neurofeedback has no side effect profile at all when done properly. Photobiomodulation, no adverse events have ever been reported in 30 years of research. Never, right? When it's done properly, when it's not spaghetti thrown at the wall type treatment, you're not going to see side effects. You're not going to have danger to the person, but you are going to be able to get positive benefits. So that's how I like to think about it.
No, that's a great answer. And what do you reckon is the time frame where people are starting to see the benefits?
Oh, that's really interesting. I want to go back to a little history lesson.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very curious. Okay.
This is the Cognito light.
Okay.
This was the device that we did the original research with.
Okay.
It was right. We referred to this as Darth Vader meets Doctor Who.
Yeah, I was about to say something like that.
So anyway, you get the idea. So when we did this, we saw that people were getting responses in 6 minutes. There was a note, like I would have people like you would come to the office and you would say, well, how does this work? And how do you know that it works? And I would say, okay. And I would take them to the back of the office where we had big windows. And I said, look out the window and look at the grass, look at the trees, and then look across the street at the trees far away. Now let's go do this. And they would put the helmet on. They would do it for 6 minutes. We turn it off. We get back up and go back to the window. I say, okay, now look out the window and give me 3 adjectives. Right? And they would say, brighter, the colors are richer, and I can see I have greater depth of field. Like I can pick out the details, what's close and what's far away, much better in 6 minutes. Now,
almost instantly then. Wow.
Yeah, because but we didn't change the shape of their eyeball. No, what we did was increase, you know what I mean by throughput? The data, the amount of data that was able to be processed from the eye to the occipital part of the brain expanded. It increased, right? By virtue of the light increasing blood flow and increasing the flow of information. That's what happened. So it has a very immediate effect, but it's going to take repeated, over time to really build that effect and make it stick. And what we found was that when you use the neurofeedback with the photobiomodulation, then you're doing 2 things. You're fixing the biological level of the problem, right? The underlying tissue level disorder, but then you can repair the electrical connections that got damaged when the tissue got damaged. You can then renormalize the connectivity, which is the efficiency. So if you recreate and improve the efficiency of the brain, then all of the health that you've been promoting with the light can stick. It doesn't just drain away and run out.
That's amazing. Does the neurofeedback part happens automatically, or is it connected with an app? How does it work?
where we're going to end up, right, in the future generations of the device is that the EEG, the electrodes that measure the EEG, are going to be in the helmet.
Okay.
So you put on the helmet, and the EEG is automatically being recorded. And the analysis of the EEG is automatically happening in real time, along with heart rate variability.
That's great.
So you can, right? So then you have the two data streams. You have the cardiovascular with the heart rate variability and the neurophysiological with the EEG, and it works like a two-directional guidance system. So the data, the algorithm from the two data streams is what's going to drive the lights.
That's and this is happening already with this device. So
this is coming. This is next.
Okay.
This is next.
That's super good. So we're talking about like very targeted approach once you get it.
Completely customized. Now we can do that customization, but we have to do the brain map.
Okay.
Then do the treatment, then do the neurofeedback, then do the treatment, then do the neurofeedback.
And you do that on a physical clinic, or is it possible?
You can do it all. Oh no. Everything we designed so you can do it in your living room.
Okay, so let's say right now, okay, we know, correct me if I'm wrong, we got the future model that would have anything embedded in the helmet. But right now we need to do the neurofeedback and the mapping before.
Right.
So how would it work right now? So right now I want to start, and I'll get the device, and I said I want to start, and I want to get the neurofeedback part, and that really level of customization that makes this very, very special.
Right.
How do I do
what we would do is find someone near you who can do the brain mapping.
Okay.
That would take about an hour.
Okay.
Right? They put a cap on you. It has the electrodes. They measure the EEG with your eyes open and your eyes closed for about 8 minutes each. That's it. And remember, there's nothing going in. It's just measuring. It's a measurement, right? It's like an EKG, right? The heart EKG, except they're putting them on your head. That's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. Except that where they put the electrodes has been set as a standard. So then I can compare your readings against the average of men who were sampled and screened and put into the database, and they were screened to have no physical or psychological or other problems. It was just a normal population of people from 6 months old to like 92.
Okay.
Male, female, left-handed, right-handed. Now I can take that EEG data and compare it against the norms for guys your age who are right-handed. Okay. And I will get results. Then I can set up the program on your laptop that we install.
Okay.
We install the software on your laptop. You have a little device. You have a little device with electrodes. You put 2 on your ears, 1 on each ear, and you put 1 or 2 on your head. And then you watch whatever's on the screen. Okay. I don't care. Whatever's on the screen is up to you. However, when you're doing the neurofeedback, you are then going to start controlling the brightness and the volume of whatever is on the screen with your brain. So your brain activity is going to be inside of a set of parameters that we set up based on the map. Okay. Like we want to increase 15, we want to decrease 25. Okay? So, as long as you're doing that, as long as you're increasing 15 and decreasing 25, the brightness and the volume of whatever it is you're looking at on the PC stays constant. As soon as you go outside of that zone, the brightness and the volume drops instantly by 75%.
Okay.
As soon as you start doing what I want you to do, it comes back full brightness and volume. That's it.
And that's that's before putting the helmet, right?
Before putting the helmet, right? Before putting the helmet. Then I can use the same readings, and I can program the helmet. So if I want to increase 10 over here, and I want to decrease 15 over here, I can program the software in the helmet to do that, and it will pulse more. It'll pulse over here in a way that increases 15, and it'll pulse over here in a way that decreases 25. And that's it.
So, wow. So I think by now people can understand that we're talking about like very high level customization. That's not just, hey, get my device.
No.
And then,
no.
It's just, we're talking about like proper stuff here. And there is at least 3 treatment protocols in one. There's a mapping, there is a neurofeedback, and there is the tangible, with the helmet that helps you, because already by neurofeedback alone, by watching the screen and trying to control that response, that by itself is already pretty powerful. And for people who are listening at neurofeedback, you're watching a screen, you control your behavior, state of emotion by having a visual feedback in this case, and that's like
and auditory. And it can be auditory.
And auditory, and that is essentially a training for your mind to change your unconscious responses. So that by itself, it's already pretty powerful. On top of that, you get also a device that helps you stabilize the frequency between the regional, and that's wonderful. That's amazing.
So the light can deliver, because you're delivering the light, and the light has biological properties, real biological effects. You're feeding the brain something the brain needs, literally. But you're also training the brain electrically by the pulse rate and the duration and the location. So people who just want to people who want to do biohacking and don't really want this level of specificity, there are preset protocols that you can see in the Neuradian. There are preset protocols for, I just want to feel peaceful. Boom. I just want to be able to focus. Boom. I just want to feel more energy. Boom. I want to make my skin feel healthier and have a glow. I want to take care of the wrinkles. Boom. I can do that. The helmet is preset with those protocols, right? And that you don't need my consultation or any of the clinicians' consultation. But the 4-quadrant model is something that's really available only to people who have a diagnosis, who really are looking to do something specific. And then they're getting 3 months of consultation with me directly over Zoom, where we're working on improving and making the treatment much more specific and customized.
So I guess in that bucket, it fits very well. Like, for example, people with trauma, that will fit very well.
Yes.
Will people with OCD fit in that as well?
OCD is an anxiety disorder.
So anything that is that has a somatic response, it's and that so many people get so that's why I'm getting more closer and closer into, like, the mental health topic, because if you watch my past videos or whatever, I've been more about like and I still am about like physical performance and getting better and better. Almost giving for granted the mind and mental health, but that is a part, for some people with anxiety, people with depression, people with trauma, that's a bit, their life has been a worse slowdown at best slow down by normal activities. At worst, even just taking away the simple but great pleasures of life, and taking a coffee and enjoy life, because that anxiety for some people is already there, is already present, and without talking for depression and so on. So here we're talking about a real alternative for people, and that's something very excited.
And right now we're talking about, there are 350 million people right now who need what we're talking about.
350 millions
worldwide. All the people with dementia, all the people with dementia, all the people with traumatic brain injury, right? All the people with COVID who have neurological injury, all the people with Parkinson's. So if you add that all up, we're looking at about 350 million people.
Yeah, I think that's not sure about the number, but that seems a very conservative estimate. I think it could be even more.
Well, what the reason I use that number is that some people get all excited about the fact that we're encouraging people to develop new technology. The foundation is not interested in protecting against competition. People are like, oh, you got to go get patents, and you got to go do this, and you got to go do that, and I'm like, do you know how big the number 350 million is?
That is true. It's a lot of people.
Like, are you kidding me?
That's a lot of people. Yeah. Would for the full protocol, do you cover any I know you replied to this to me before, but do you cover any geolocation? For example, Australia. Do you have? Would you? Yeah. Okay. Oh, perfect. Yeah. Because I know a lot of people are listening from Australia as well, and they will ask. Okay.
Yeah, we have, and we have a very strong relationship with Michael Leiner at Lifespan Dynamics, and I really like his cell LED multi-phase pad, which I think is terrific. And we want to work closely with all of the people who are doing photobiomodulation, and we want to encourage them to start looking at using 1070 nanometer diodes and wavelengths, including that into their programs, because we know that it works in some ways. It works better than the lower frequency, the lower wavelength devices, and so why not?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious about because I know people are gonna ask in the comments. So I'm just gonna ask here. What about the pricing for the full service for getting the mapping? Obviously, the mapping is extended, but plus the consultation and the device. And
what we did. Now, Neuronic is the company that was created to market and develop the Neuradian technology. Quietmind Foundation is a not-for-profit research and consultation group. We don't really sell stuff.
Okay.
That's not okay. We do the research, we do the consultation, and we have now a relationship with Neuronic to market the Neuradian. And that's why it says, Neuronic with research by Quietmind.
Quietmind Foundation.
Right. So Neuronic is taking responsibility for marketing and sales and development of the helmet. The neurofeedback is coming, and that's still the responsibility of Quietmind Foundation. Okay. So if people are interested in the neurofeedback and the home training, they can come to me directly and I'll help them get set up. And we sell that equipment for $1,750. And we bill only for the time that we spend analyzing the session by session data in groups of like 10 or 20 sessions at a time. So we bill at $180 an hour in 15-minute increments. And we don't need that much time. We're maybe doing 30, 45 minutes a month. And people can do as many sessions as they want. It's theirs. We teach them how to do it. The equipment belongs to them, and that's it. The helmet has two prices. One is for the people who don't need the consultation. That's $29.95 US.
Okay.
the consultation and 4-quadrant model is $49.95 US. And then at the end of 3 months, if we decide that it's really not working for you, then you can apply and send the material, send it back, and they will give you 80% of your money back on the helmet. So, it's about making something that works, not making money.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And this is something that can literally change people's lives. It's yeah.
So it's much more important to us that we have those 3 months of being able to get people to understand how to approach using these tools to their greatest effect. And the other thing is that I really want to work with people like you and the people in functional medicine, the people in high performance, to get the information that functional medicine has to be part of this process in order to get rid of the underlying toxicity, right? Then build the capacity for change with the photobiomodulation, then repair the connectivity so you've got a complete reparative, protective process, not just pieces, and certainly not spaghetti at the wall. Our neuropsychologist who does the neuropsychological testing is bilingual in Italian.
Oh, really? Oh, that's it.
and we have Antonio Candela is in Italy, and he's a Recode functional medicine nutritional consultant. And Antonio is now learning how to do photobiomodulation. So we have somebody in Italy who people can consult with right now.
That's amazing.
I'll send you his information.
Yeah, please. And also for people listening, I'm gonna, once the episode is published, I'm gonna put the show notes in with how to reach you, the website, and the information about Antonio and how to reach him and so on. But I also want people to understand that there is, I just want to emphasize it once again. There are a lot of pieces in the puzzle, here, there is mapping, neurofeedback, there is a consultation, there is a device. So there's really a lot of things. And I think the benefit that you can get from it are like very, very high. There is pretty much everyone fits in a bucket in a way or another. So it's amazing. It's outstanding. Another thing I'd like to ask you, Dr. Marvin, is even because every episode I like to give the 3 layers of 3, I call it like the value ladder, right? On for people when it comes to health benefit for the topic that we're discussing about. So for example, now we're talking about mental health, mental performance, cognitive performance. And the 3 layers are, what is the things that people can do for free today to enhance it, cognitive performance and mental health? And then what is the things that is like first level premium, something that they can do with, let's say, anywhere which is up to $200, and then the premium option, the very premium option, which we just discussed. So I just want to discuss what would be your suggestions.
There are 2 things. For absolutely no money, right? You can start by paying attention to whether you breathe through your nose or your mouth, and whether you inhale through your nose or your mouth. And you can start to practice only inhaling through your nose, even when you're talking.
Okay, yeah, that's it.
Okay, which you have. So I've been breathing through my nose this whole conversation, right? And the reason is that when you breathe in through your nose, you stimulate the part of your nervous system that helps you relax.
Okay.
When you breathe in through your mouth and into your upper chest, you automatically stimulate the production of adrenaline in your blood.
Okay.
So you're immediately causing all of the changes that happen when you're stressed simply by virtue of the fact that you're breathing in through your mouth.
And also the heart rate variability benefit, which comes as a consequence. Okay, great.
Got
Sounds
that?
simple, but
Okay. So that's and the other one is, if you start counting the number of times that you breathe in 1 minute. So in and out equals 1. If you stop and just simply start a timer and just count the number of times you breathe in a minute, one of the things that you can start to look at is working on decreasing the number of breaths per minute and becoming more and more comfortable with less breaths per minute. Because the more breaths per minute, the more likely you are to be hyperventilating up in your chest.
Okay.
The less breaths per minute, the more you're going to be breathing diaphragmatically. The other free thing on YouTube is something called Brain Gym, GYM.
Okay, Brain Gym.
Brain Gym. And that is a series of exercises that is designed to help re-establish the left and right hemisphere communication.
Ah, amazing. Okay, I'm gonna do that today, right away.
Yeah, and it's very, it's fun. A lot of children videos of people doing, exercise with children. The music is terrible, but yeah. Anyway, but those are two that people can do right off the bat that will be significantly helpful. For $100 or $200, you can get something that helps you monitor your respiration. You can also get something to monitor the pulse oximeter, the blood oxygen.
Okay. Oh yeah,
And
that's like $20 or something. Okay.
$20, right? And you can combine that with the breaths per minute.
Okay.
And
So
that's a very powerful combination.
That is great. That's okay. That's very great insights there. And for people who, let's say, they say, okay, I want to start with the neurofeedback in the consultation from you guys, and then getting the device in a second moment. They can definitely do that as well.
Sure. And people can consult with me directly just by setting up a time for consultation, and I just bill I think $250 for a full consultation. So that's around your $200 point.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
They can do a full consultation with me, and that way I can help them by serving more like the clinical quarterback, right? Instead of the patient. That's the insanity of the system, right? Now, all of a sudden, the patient is supposed to be making all the choices about what thing to use, when it's like, are you kidding me? That's crazy. So I can help with giving people the lay of the land. What are the options that you could choose from? And then which ones would make more sense based on how much time you have, how much energy you've got, and how much money or resources you have.
That sounds great. And so this is something what you just said is something very personal to me on a slightly different topic.
Okay.
So, my mom is fighting, and now I can say thank God she seems to be winning, again, touch wood, against cancer, right? And last year in 2020, so in the middle of COVID, she she had a uterus cancer. You went to the ovaries, you went to the low abdomen, stage 4. It was very bad. But what made it even worse, and that's connected to the things that you said before, that the figure that was missing at the time was this. So she was getting thrown left and right to, do a test in this lab, do a test in this other lab, go to the hospital for this test, and now go to the other hospital for the chemio, and then go there. So we're talking about 5, 6, 7 different, entities, medical entities, and there was they would not talk to each other. The way of talking to each other was through a piece of paper. And that's, I just want to emphasize, that's not just an individual situation. That's everyone. That's, was my situation, but that's for everyone. And there was no project manager that to talk with them all and to manage
clinical coordinator.
that's a figure that is so
where are they? Where is that person?
It's so needed. It's so needed because what happens is that it leads, because the entities in the laboratory and the hospital, they're not talking to each other. They are to a certain degree, but they're not doing so effective. Essentially just a number, another piece of paper. It leads to mistakes that cannot be reversed. In the case of
who the clinical coordinator in the U.S. Insurance company.
I don't know. That's not.
What's wrong with this picture? They're the ones saying, "Oh no, you don't need that. You need this." Go. Wait a minute. What?
It's a very sad reality so we need features like that.
We need to know how to become our own clinical coordinators, and using media like you, people like you, to create a community where there's real information that people can get a hold of and make use of. That's what's going to make the difference.
Yeah, no, absolutely, 100%. And even myself, I learned, and I had a series of conditions that are fortunately now they've passed. But if it wasn't for learning and understanding even simple things, which is the best medical figure to consult, because sometimes that's something, it sounds basic, but it's not as basic. Right. It definitely helps. So yeah, definitely that's at least the mission. Share as much information as we can. Sometimes I'm against the roadblocks from medicine. Something, it's genetic, there's nothing you can do. I always think there is always a way. Again, I always preach of doing things with caution. If you don't know what you're doing, just always consult with the medical professional, a functional doctor, and so on. But always speak or always hear a second opinion as well. Sometimes some people may not correctly diagnose a certain condition, whatever that might be. Always speak to a second opinion, trying to learn. There is always something out there.
But don't treat Dr. Google as the end all know all authority.
Agree.
Yeah, be careful. Yeah, that's why we want to do this kind of public education. That's why Quietmind has been doing this for all this time, is just to get people to start thinking more holistically. So I really appreciate you having me on, and us being able to have this conversation. I think it's really important people know that there really are options, there really is hope, and that they should keep looking and keep asking good questions.
Absolutely. Well, Dr. Marvin, so first of all, I want to thank you for being given longer than we forecasted, but it's been an absolute pleasure. I love having people with enthusiasm on the show. I'm gonna leave with one question. I know I'm the most rude host on the planet, because I always ask people their age. So because I'm curious, and then I'm gonna connect. I'm gonna tell you why I asked this.
I turned 72 yesterday.
Sometimes you go to some people are gonna hate me for this, but sometimes you go to to a dietitian to lose weight, and they are like overweight, and there's nothing against being overweight, but like I tend to trust people who they what's the saying on that? They do what they preach, right? So I wouldn't trust someone who's not leading by example, right?
15 years.
15 years, yeah.
3 to 5 times a week, 15 years.
And that's what I was about to say. So first of all,
and now I have this. I use this. Oh yeah.
You're like very switched on for it's, and that's what I've asked you for. First of all, you look younger than 72, but also you are like, that's what I want to be at 72. I want to be very, like, you're very switched on, and so you definitely do what you preach, and I don't mean just bambism, obviously being smart and having, studying for decades your fields, like you have enthusiasm. When I say switched on, I also mean enthusiasm. Which is, so many people as they age, they lose enthusiasm.
You said passion. You said passion.
Vitality. And that's something that I really I admire. And that's why I've asked how old were you? Because I want to be keeping the same passion, even in their older age. And that's equally important. So definitely
stay positive.
Yeah, absolutely. Dr. Marvin, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much value. I've learned so much, and let's definitely be Arrivederci.
Hey there, thanks for listening. Before we conclude, I'd like you to remind you something very, very important. This episode, as well as this podcast in general, is for general informational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. Listeners should not disregard or delay in obtaining medical advice for any medical condition they may have. Please, if you have any medical condition, consult your physician first. Disclaimer given, I would love for you to subscribe to this podcast and to leave me a review. That will help me a lot. We're just starting out. We have already a lot of great interviews down the line, which you don't want to miss. So hit the subscribe button so you will get notification for the next exciting episode. I'll see you next time.